and welcome back to Radio Taiwan International. You're listening to Geek Out. What's your cup of tea, tickles your fancy, or floats your boat? Join us as we share passions from people in Taiwan and around the world. I'm your host, Michelle Chang, and today in the studio we have whom I call my fish friend, but so much more than that, Shannon.
Hello, Michelle. I'm so glad to be back.
What are we geeking out about today?
Today we're going to talk Dungeons and Dragons,
yes,
DMing.
Yes, because you were here previously we were talking about aquariums, of which we have a mutual love.
Yes, we do.
And then of Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yes.
Which is amazing. Those are two very amazing episodes. Listeners, if you are interested, I believe they were back maybe 6 months or a little longer ago, maybe a year. But they're in our archives. They're good episodes, so have a listen. So, Shannon has expressed an interest in dungeon mastering.
Yes. I have friends that have never played before. I've DM'd a single one-shot that I wrote, and it went quite well, but I'm going to try to do a campaign this time.
Yes.
And that's a way bigger commitment.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Okay, so let's do a little bit of defining for listeners. Obviously, we have touched on Dungeons & Dragons on this show before. It is a tabletop role-playing game. These days, can actually be played online rather than on a real table. But Shannon, you want to do an in-person game.
Yes, I do, with Taiwanese people, which is going to be fun. It's really impressive. Like, I want my students, I'm an English teacher, and I would like my students to read about D&D, because as a kid, I learned more advanced English words by reading the monster manual.
Yeah.
Like my parents played, so they had a monster manual in the bookcase, and I would just read it and like learn all these advanced words.
I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So your parents were D&D players?
Yes.
So that must have been second edition.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
It had the centaurs in the front.
Oh, yes. Yeah, second edition. Me too. I really was a terrible student. I only learned English well by going to the library and reading interesting books, right? Like fantasy novels and things like that. And that's where I got my vocabulary and, the use of grammar and all of that from school learning.
Yeah, book learning.
It is book learning. Okay, so we were chatting a bit at dinner today about what the whole DMing or dungeon mastering experience is. And you did have a great idea about it. First running a one-shot that is pre-written, because if listeners are interested in becoming a DM, you don't have to come up with your own adventure yet if you don't quite understand how to create one or the mechanics of running one. There are pre-written adventures out there, like a whole slew of them all over the internet. You can buy one if you want, or there are many free ones on offer that you can download and or just read about. So you were going to run a one-shot. Do you have any idea what vibe you're going for?
I like the idea of, there's the meme that says you think that it's going to be Lord of the Rings, but it ends up Monty Python. I would like Monty Python. I think that's fun. It's corny. It's everybody's like involved, and there's still knights and dragons and like silly rabbits.
I don't think you have to be worried about wanting Monty Python. It always winds up being Monty Python, no matter how, what you started with. What about like magic intensity? Because there's a range of pretty gritty, more real world, less magical versus really high fantasy, high magic.
Definitely high fantasy. I haven't played that many
campaigns or games.
Yeah. Because other people want to do other worlds, but the high fantasy of D&D is what I really want to do. I've played Shadowrun, I've played stuff that people built, but the high fantasy of D&D is what you really want to
respond to.
Yes, like the monster manual. I want as many monsters as possible. I want dragons. I want real dragons that like have their lair, and like there's in my one shot, there was a legendary fire dragon, a legendary red dragon, and one of the things I read in the monster manual, in their lair, near their lair, there are portals to the fire plane.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's written right in the title of Dungeons & Dragons. Not much to ask if you want dragons. I agree. Okay, so we were talking about getting started as a dungeon master, which is part of the reason why I met Shannon for dinner today, because I love talking about this nerdy stuff. It's so fun. Every campaign, obviously you're going to run that one shot first and see about getting a feel for being a DM, since it'll be your first time. But when it's time to actually create your own, every campaign generally falls on a scale of, say, 1 to 10, 1 being a railroad campaign. And if listeners, you can imagine, there's a train and there's a rail, and it's just the train can't leave the rail. The train will just follow the rail all the way from one side to the other. And what that really means is the dungeon master writes an adventure, and they very much intend for the party and the adventure to follow the rail from one end to the other. The players really they don't have that much effect on the direction of the story. Whereas 10, I tend to call it a sandbox, which means that the DM provides the sandbox and the tools and things, and then the players more or less build their own world out of the materials you've given them. Generally, all campaigns will fall somewhere on this track. How comfortable are you with writing in your own creation and what we call homebrew?
I think I could get into that. Definitely not my first campaign. Definitely not the first one shot. I want something
very structured.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I want something that someone has done before that they know works.
Yep.
I want something tried and true to start with, just to build my confidence, especially because I'm going to be playing with new players.
Mm-hmm.
One of the players has played before, the others have not. Actually, what has got them into it is the Dungeons and Dragons movie. And a lot of people
I loved
are
that
interested.
movie.
And then Baldur's Gate,
yes,
the video game.
BG3, they did a good job with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything from, you can spend hours in just character creation alone, but running the actual RPG of the video game is impressive. They did a great job.
Nice.
So, thank you, Hi Nerds, for creating media for us.
What format is that? What platform is that game on?
Oh, it's on, I believe you can play it on PS5 as well as if you have a computer or desktop.
Okay.
So a few different ways to play. It is on Steam.
Okay, I'll look at it.
Feel free to look at it. But fair warning, you are going to be sucked into that world for hours and hours on end. It's very involving.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. So for your campaign though, I know you want something very, very structured for your one shot, but are you one to imagine your own world?
Yes, I like.
Of course. When I say imagine your own world, that doesn't mean completely from scratch. What a lot of dungeon masters do is they steal, quote unquote steal, from pop culture and fandoms and things of, media that we know and love as nerds. For example, locations and characters from The Lord of the Rings, since we've mentioned that before, or Harry Potter, or
Dune.
Or Dune, or the ever famous Game of Thrones, right? People will straight up borrow characters or plot hooks or locations, sometimes even details down to they'll actually introduce the exact family from, say, Game of Thrones into their own story, and that's totally okay because I don't think they're gonna bust us for copyright violation if we're playing D&D in your house.
Yeah.
So totally fine, and that's part of the fun of it because, as I mentioned at dinner, players will think it's pretty awesome to meet somebody in your game that they already know. They'll obviously recognize, the name, Eddard Stark, right? If that guy shows up in your game, they're going to be like, holy crap, Eddard Stark, from Game of Thrones. It's an added element of hilarity.
Okay.
So that's always fun. So you don't actually have to create from scratch. You can, it's kind of like making cake from a box. Make your own modifications.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did. I wrote up a couple of characters, and I had Duncan, Idaho as a fighting mentor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Where do you think you're going to fall, though? Like a 1 to 10?
Probably about 5.
Nice in the middle.
Yeah,
good
I would
moderate.
like to be in the middle.
Yeah. With all the material that's out there, it's also a pity not to use it, like pre-written material.
Yeah.
Listeners, just this past October, I ran a 6-episode series based on the Curse of Strahd's Death House mini campaign. And that is actually free material, guys. If you want to go online, Google Curse of Strahd Death House. That is something that you can just straight up download, and it's free for everyone to use. Thank you very much, Wizards of the Coast. It's designed to be maybe a 3-episode, 4-episode game, several sessions, basically. But that are about maybe 3 or 4 hours long each. So the version that you heard us play on our show is really, really condensed. But that is actually the freedom that you can have as a dungeon master. You can take pre-written information and modify it to your liking for your own game. How well do you know the players?
I don't know them very well at all. I know one of them. He's a Tinder match.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is interesting.
Yeah, it's actually funny. I just painted a bunch of minis. So I spent a whole month painting 113 minis.
I saw that. It looks impressive.
It was really fun. It was really hard, but it was really fun. But for a month, people would be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm painting." And everyone's like, "Oh my God, Dungeons and Dragons, that's so cool." Like literally about half of the people I told were excited about the idea of Dungeons and Dragons.
It has become surprisingly less, it's less nerdy and more mainstream.
Yes.
Everybody has at this point heard of D&D because it is the most popular of all the TTRPGs that are out there. And I'm really glad that it's gotten so much of a spotlight.
Right.
So.
Well, Stranger Things was first, and then the movie, and then the games.
Previously mentioned Game of Thrones really brought the whole fantasy magic genre like to the water cooler of everybody's office. So we're going to ignore the last season of that.
Which I still have not watched.
Oh, good. Don't watch it. Don't. It's fine. It never happened. It's fine. This is actually pretty interesting. I found out that you don't know the people who are going to be sitting at your table very well.
Yes.
When one of the first pieces of advice that I gave you was that pick and choose your players wisely.
Exactly.
You could super win. You could super not. But let's, knock on wood, cross our fingers that these are going to be decent people.
Yes.
Because a lot of the time when you host a game, you yourself as the dungeon master are kind of like the teacher, the mom, or a parent, I'm going to say, parent, or possibly like the moderator of these more or less kids that are at your table playing in their sandbox or riding on this train. So you asked me a very interesting question at dinner. Also, you said, what was it? What's the worst thing?
Yes, what's the worst thing a player can do?
That is a very interesting question. I answered with, generally, be super duper inconsiderate and chaotic, because players who are interested in becoming a player at a Dungeons & Dragons or other TTRPG game, the dungeon master spends a lot of time, energy, and effort designing the adventures for you. This world took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. As a player, you should respect that. And a lot of people kind of don't. They kind of just look at this game, they find it boring, maybe it's not worth their time. You mentioned to someone, please tell the story, at your other game.
I left a game because there was a player that was backstabbing the group, was like splitting the party and then backstabbing everybody, and everybody else at the table didn't seem to mind, but I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And then this player didn't show up, and their friend said, "Oh, they don't like the game enough to travel from another city every time." And then the DM was like, "Oh, then we'll spend half the sessions there and half the sessions here."
Yeah.
And I don't want to travel an hour to go be backstabbed.
Exactly. So, which brings me to my next point, is communication is vital as a dungeon master when you're setting up the game, especially because you've got a bunch of ideas. Obviously, no spoilers. You don't want to tell your exact plot line to keep it a mystery and a surprise for your players. But you do want to talk to them very much about what are their expectations and what your general vibe ideas are for this game. And then session 0 is actually really fun when they start to roll up their players and come up with backstories and things for you to weave into your Grandmaster scheme.
And what is session 0, just for listeners?
Oh, session 0 is when the group meets up for generally the first time to officially not actually begin the story, but begin building the basic building blocks for it. So you will select the necessities for your character, such as race, class, and any, have to roll up their stats or statistics, their abilities, and load them up with their equipment and other adventuring gear, and basically be ready for session 1.
What level do you usually start at?
Oh, that's a good one. It's up to you, really.
Okay.
Because a lot of people who like to start their characters at level 1, just straight up, very beginning. A lot of people have this misconception that they're going to show up and they're already this hero of the people and they're good at fighting and stuff. No. Level 1, you are a commoner. You know nothing. Generally, the 5th edition anyway, does a good job at scaling people up. And the players who run these characters really experience the growth that they should if they were like you and me, like a regular person beginning to adventure. So that's the that's the main pro to starting them at level 1.
Right.
Is they're super basic. You can instill some fear of God, aka you, that death is probable in this world if you're going to be doing stupid things.
Because doesn't a wizard start with like 4 hit points or something?
Well, you 4 plus con, very low. Yes, 4 plus your con bonus, and if you dumped your con, then it's a very bad idea. So if you get bit by a couple of rats, you die. So it's like, yeah, it drives home the realization that you are fragile. So you should be guarded about the way you make your moves in these adventures. Now, level 3 is where most people start a more long-term campaign at, if they have a little bit less time, I should say. Because level 3 is when all of the classes have now kind of gained a specialty. Monks will have their way of the sun or way of the drunken master. Druids will have their subclass as well, I believe, like
circle of the spores, which
circle of the moon, circle of the shepherd, right? And so on and so forth. So each class will at level 3 all be selecting their subclass, which is when things really start getting cool. Now, since you've got a couple of super noobs at your table, I would actually suggest starting at level 1.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Kind of lets them get a feel for the mechanics first.
That's what I was thinking.
Because, yeah, in the very beginning, you can really just do one thing. You can take out your thing and you hit him. your knife and you stab him, right? That's more or less what you can do. You can do a very, very simple, basic magic thing, and you start to add slowly from there.
Right.
Yeah. When you used to play, what level did you get to?
We started at 3 and went up to 6, I think.
Oh, so you made it to 6.
Yes.
And then you departed.
Yes.
6 is a good point because when people play one shots, frequently they will say roll up level 5 characters because the next level of awesome, extra things that start to really get added to your character that make them even more interesting and fun to play is level 5.
Okay.
So 3, 5, and then some people say 10. But I think really after 5, it's negligible.
All right. So 5 is
the next big noticeable jump in cool abilities. You've got noobs. Start them at level 1. It'll be fun.
Okay. I'll tell you about my other game. The most feminist thing I've ever seen a guy do. He was playing another game and he noticed there was one woman, and a lot of the players were like obsessed with prostitutes. And he could tell that she was uncomfortable.
Oh, no.
So he started a game. He contacted a lot of women and was like, I'm going to DM a women-only game because I want it to be a comfortable place for women. And then it was 3 women.
I love that.
Yep.
I love it. That's also part of the conversation that absolutely should be had in the very beginning of a campaign. Like how does everybody feel? What are your opinions on certain topics? And you should pull up a list of controversial topics that may or may not get touched on in the game. There's certain things called veils and lines. Veil means it might happen on the other side of a veil and you're kind of okay with it as long as it's not in your face. And a line is something that cannot be crossed.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's something that's fairly important to have a discussion about in the beginning. Like some people will have triggers, of course. Everyone's a little bit different. And players should also be encouraged not to be afraid to talk about that with you, so that you know, as the main controller of this game, not to introduce, for example, child torture if that's a thing that people are gonna have a huge problem with.
Right.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, it was.
I love the trend of this game. What's happening because it's becoming more mainstream, because traditionally, no offense to Gary Gygax, the creator of this game, but it was just a bunch of dudes. It really was. It was just a bunch of dudes who would get together and play their bro game. And that's cool. I am just really happy where the game is now.
Me too. Yes.
I like how instead of calling, I keep calling it races, but it's no longer called races. People are changing the nomenclature, the terminology to species.
Right.
Good. Stuff like that. So everything is headed in a really inclusive direction. Do you have any more questions while we're talking about this?
I think we hit it.
Are you excited?
I'm so excited. I am so excited. I'm excited for my dice.
Oh, yes.
That's a great gift.
Yes, I'm going to be sending Shannon a set of dice because, of course, gotta welcome you to the ranks of Dungeon Master. It's a lot. It's a lot of work. And it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. But the reward that you get far outstrips the cost because you get to watch these people And, you know, they not only just step into your world, but like the expressions on their faces, the amount of fun they're having, the laughing. And then, of course, if they're experiencing extreme something trauma in this world, it does happen, but you get to see them then overcome these challenges. And it is an absolutely amazing experience you're providing for them. So, of course, it takes certain personalities to be a dungeon master and fully enjoy that aspect of it, but I think you are.
I think so too. I'm a teacher. I'm used to leading people.
Yay. Yeah. And, well, I know you haven't started yet, but do you have anything you want to say to anyone else who wants to take this step?
I think if you're serious about enjoying this game, it is the next step. It's the next level. If you want to read, I love reading. I love reading the books. So I'm going to get as many books as I can. They're on discount now on Amazon because the new one is coming out. So I'm going to read and I'm going to build it and I'm going to watch people have fun and not try to control them. Make sure I'm not going to railroad too much. Because I think I'm going to be tempted to do that. But you just let people have fun. You just like create this little world for them and then let them go play.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's going to be so great. I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
All right, players. I called you guys players. I guess I should. It's fitting for this episode. Thank you so much for geeking out with me, Shannon.
You are welcome. Thank you for having me again.
And thanks, players, for tuning into Radio Taiwan International. I'm Michelle Chang, and we'll be back next Thursday with another episode of Geek Out.